in the southern coastal city last night. The victims, both of whom are in their 20s, were inside of a car that detectives say was wired to explode. Evidence gathered at the scene is now being examined in hopes of determining exactly what happened and who is to blame. Concern over a missing state witness is over after he reportedly contacted his family last night. Authorities spent the weekend in search of the unnamed individual, worried about his well-being because he had provided key testimony that led to the indictments of dozens of kingpins in the country's organized crime syndicates. Associates say that the witness felt abandoned by the police and the state and claimed that more than once security arrangements to protect him were reduced to a minimum even though he remained under severe threat. He left a parting letter to his family before disappearing on Friday, and it remains unclear how he managed to evade officers charged with ensuring his safety, who were apparently unaware that he'd even gone into hiding. Supreme Court President Miriam Naor has harshly condemned Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan for his proposal that it become more difficult to promote judges who fail to hand out stiff penalties to rock throwers. In a special announcement released a short time ago, she wrote that Erdan's plan is suitable for countries that we would not like to be compared to, as opposed to the Jewish and democratic state that we are. She then emphasized that Israel's judges will continue to perform their duties faithfully and not out of fear of anyone. On this eve of the Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year, citizens nationwide rushed to make last-minute preparations and stock up on food and other supplies for the two-day holiday. The capital's Machane Yehuda outdoor market was bustling with shoppers who came to purchase ingredients for their festive meals. Apples were among the top commodities purchased for the traditional dipping into honey, symbolizing a sweet and healthy New Year. In another hour or so, the country will virtually shut down until Wednesday morning for the duration of the holiday. During the entire upcoming period of the high holy days, security forces will remain on heightened alert. As always, ahead of the new year, the Central Bureau of Statistics released the national population figures. There are now 8.4 million citizens in the country, reflecting a growth of 158 souls, which is a 1.9% increase over the past year. There was an all-time high birth rate of 168,000 new lives that joined us. The most common first names for boys in the Jewish sector are Ori, Eitan, Ariel, Noam, David, and Yosef. Among the Jewish girls, the most popular are Tamar, Noah, Talia, Shira, Yael, and Avigail. 58,000 people got married this year, and 20,000 were divorced. 42,000 people passed away. The population breaks down into 6.3 million Jews, who make up 74.9% of the population, 1.74 million Arabs at 21%, and 366 residents registered as others. According to the Bureau's future projections, Israel's population will reach 10 million between 2025 and 2030. Turning now to the migrant crisis in Europe, and tens of thousands marched through central London in a show of solidarity with refugees fleeing their homelands in search of safety. The rally began in Hyde Park, continuing to Parliament Square via Downing Street, where many of the crowd protested against the government's handling of the escalating situation. Last week, British Prime Minister David Cameron pledged to increase the number of refugees that his country is willing to take in to 20,000 over a period of 5 years. Critics of that policy say that it's shameful in comparison with the far higher numbers being absorbed by other countries in the European Union, such as Germany and Sweden. Newly elected Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn was among those who participated in the march just hours after he won the vote to succeed Ed Miliband.
So today here in Parliament Square, we as ordinary decent people stand up and say to our government, recognise your obligations in law. That would be good. Recognise your obligations to help people, which you're required to do by law. That would be good. But above all, open your hearts and open your minds and open your attitude towards supporting people who are desperate, who need somewhere safe to live, want to contribute to our society, and are human beings just like all of us. Together in peace, together in justice, together in humanity.
There were also several other marches over the weekend throughout Europe in support of the refugees, many of whom are coming from Syria and Afghanistan. In Warsaw, however, about 10,000 nationalists and right-wingers took to major downtown streets in a protest against the absorption of asylum seekers. Many waved Polish flags and lighted flares that engulfed the rally in smoke while chanting anti-Islamic slogans including "Today refugees, tomorrow terrorists." Police in riot gear watched warily over the protest, although there were no reports of violence. Elsewhere in the city, others did gather for other rallies in smaller numbers in support of helping those in need. I'm now joined here in the studio by senior Bloomberg News correspondent Kalev Ben-David, who has just returned with Prime Minister Netanyahu from his state visit to Great Britain. Hi, Kalev. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure to be here, Erin, as always.
Now, let's talk about what were the objectives of the Prime Minister's summit to London and meeting with David Cameron, and do you think that those goals were met?
Well, I think the primary focus of his discussion with Cameron was Iran. The Prime Minister knows that the battle against the agreement has basically been lost, as we know. It's because of developments in Washington. And I think what he's trying to do now is go to the next step, which is speak to various world leaders to, in a sense, lay down markers so that if there are any violations or apparent violations of the treaty, that they'll be taken seriously and reacted on. And also, I think, at some degree, to sort of slow down the rush we've seen by some of the Western powers, including Great Britain, to reestablish relations with Iran and to reestablish commercial ties and trade. So I think he's trying to lay down those markers now, early on. His success, we'll see in the coming months. You know, when there are reports, perhaps, of some of these violations, or whether of contracts with Iran. But I think there was another greater purpose here. The Prime Minister is going to be going to New York to the United Nations early next month. He's apparently got a trip to Germany also planned for next month. There's reports now he's going to be going to Washington in November to meet with President Obama. I think this flurry is, in a sense, the Prime Minister trying to say, okay, the battle over the Iran agreement, that's gone. It's business as usual. People that say that Israel is now completely isolated and our relations with the U.S. and Western Europe are in tatters. I'm showing you that with these conversations that it's back to more or less as business as usual, and that the alliances are still there with these countries.
What do you make of this latest development of Jeremy Corbyn being elected as Labour Party leader? He's not known as being a friend of Israel, of course. And what kind of an impact may he have on British policy with Israel?
Right. Now, obviously, if there was a serious chance of him becoming Prime Minister, that would be very disturbing. I'm no expert in British politics, but most of the polls show that that is not likely. However, the Labour Party is one of the two main parties in Great Britain, and to have picked someone like Corbyn with views, I mean, he referred to Hamas and Hezbollah as friends.
Right.
Imagine, this was a party that just had, recently had Tony Blair as its leader. It's a disturbing sign of a trend that is accelerating, and certainly in parts of Western Europe and in Great Britain, movement by attitudes that will once seem sort of like in the far left or extreme left, now moving more to the general left or center left that Labour represents. And I think it is a worrying trend for Israel, and we'll have to just see to what degree he either will impact on the debate. He's not going to affect policy for sure, but if he moves the needle on the debate into what is acceptable in Great Britain, I think that is a cause of concern for Israel.
And what do you make about the resolution from the European Parliament calling for the labeling of products that are produced in the Jewish settlements? What kind of an impact will this have on trade?
Well, first of all, it'll have no direct impact on trade itself. Let me point that out. A couple of clarifications here. That resolution is a non-binding resolution.
Right.
Actually, has no substance in a sense. The real decision on the labeling has to be made by the member states of the EU. And there are reports, Federica Mogherini, the EU foreign policy chief, did say that she felt that they were moving towards that in the coming weeks. That was one of the issues, surely, that the Prime Minister wanted to speak with David Cameron, who has said that he's against boycotts of any Israeli products and settlements. But this by itself is not a boycott of those products. It's labeling them. Having said that, it would make it easier from those who target Israeli settlement products for boycott to identify those products. So that will definitely be it would aid the BDS movement. Now, I have to point out the EU already distinguishes in terms of trade with Israel from settlement products. They don't give deficit tariffs to settlement products that they give to other exports that come from Israel in general. That policy is not going to change, but there are senior Israeli officials who have said they're worried this is setting a dangerous precedent. That once they take this step, well, the next step could be labeling all Israeli products. The next step beyond that could be removing some of those tariffs on it. So certainly in the Netanyahu government, there is concern that this is a precedent, and that is why Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke in really new, even harsher language than ever before when I was on the trip, and I heard him compare this to the Nazi boycotts of the 1930s. Right. That's something that we've only heard sort of unattributed to the Prime Minister in the past. Senior officials have said the fact that he's willing to go on the record with that kind of rhetoric now shows how the concern there is in Jerusalem.
Okay, you were with the Prime Minister. Tell us what you know. If the Iran deal is basically done, as you've already said, what is he going to talk about when he makes his address at the United Nations at the end of this month?
Again, I think just to go back to what I said, I think he's going to talk about, first of all, looking at some of the violations, that some of the developments that we already seeing in Iran, reports of this sudden discovery of uranium that they kind of announced.
And expansions at Parchin.
Yes, the evidence has come out of expansions at Parchin. He's going to, I think, make the next case, which is that there were already comments by Khamenei over the last week where he almost seemed to not even acknowledge the treaty. So, and the Prime Minister commented on not even paying it, pretending that there is. I think these are the kind of incidents that the Prime Minister is going to point it out. Of course, he can't reverse the treaty. One thing he certainly wants to try to help, two goals that he wants to do, try to stem the renewal of trade with Iran, that will give them the funding they'll need to fund actions else in the region, and again try to get the international community, especially the U.S. and Europe, to look at some of the other actions Iran is taking in the region, such as the funding of Hezbollah, the support they're giving in Iran, the boots on the ground of Iranians now in Syria, their actions in Yemen. All these, I think, will be covered there.
Okay, on a far happier note, I personally want to wish you a Shana Tova, but before I let you go, and we were very glad you were able to come in on this the eve of a holiday. What do you see as the most pressing issues facing Israelis and Jews worldwide this coming year? Well,
I think with Israelis, it's clearly the explosion of the region around us, the threat posed by Iran, the disintegration of Syria, and the consequences which we see going on in Europe now, the refugees, and I think that's going to be impacting us more and more during the coming year. For the world Jewry, obviously, again, the acceleration that we've seen, and we've discussed some of this, towards rising anti-Semitism powered by some far-left elements, by this Islamic radicals that may be strengthened by some of the migration that's been going on. And I think this whole issue going into Europe, the impact, the changing demographics of Europe, I think the world Jewry, the relationship between world Jewry and Israel and how they view it, Aliyah, that could all come much more to the fore during the coming year. But let's hope, Aaron, that this year will also have some good news beyond the challenges to look forward to.
And either way, we'll have you back to discuss it. Kalev, always good of you to come in, particularly tonight. Thank you very much this afternoon.
Shana Tova, Aaron, to you and all the viewers.
Thank you. Here now is a message from President Rivlin expressing his best wishes for a happy new year.
Friends, as we approach the high holidays, I send you my best wishes for a sweet new year. Shana Tova u'metuka. We know that as we celebrate the new year, it is also time for soul-searching and prayer. Tradition teaches that all mankind pass before God and are written for a good or bad year. On Yom Kippur, the holiest of days, the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies in the temple in Jerusalem and offer 3 prayers. First, for himself and his family. Second, for his tribe. And only then did he pray for all the people. It seems strange, even wrong, for the high priest to begin praying for himself before praying for others. The rabbi's answers. That is in order to truly represent the whole people in order to truly place the prayers of the nation before God, the high priest must first offer his own prayer, because only when we are sure of our own path can we hope, appreciate the needs of others. Israel faces many challenges, both internally and externally. Social challenges, economic challenges, and of course, security challenges. We can and we will overcome them as we have done many times before. To do so, we must work internally to strengthen the bonds between us, between the different communities that make up the Israeli people, and between our brothers and sisters, friends and supporters of Israel around the world, just as the high priest did. I hope that we all may greet the new year while we are sure of our own path as individuals, as people, and as a nation. May we all be written in the book of life. May we all have a good, happy, and sweet year. Shana Tova to all of you from Jerusalem.
And joining our own leaders, U.S. President Barack Obama also sent out his New Year's greeting to the Jewish communities in the United States, Israel, and around the world.
Chag Sameach, everybody. On behalf of myself, Michelle, and our family, I want to extend our warmest wishes to Jews across America, Israel, and the world as you mark the first of the high holy days. Jewish tradition teaches us that for the next 10 days, the book of life is open. As millions of Jews ask God to inscribe their names in that book, we recognize how much lies beyond our control. Yet during these days of awe, we also recognize our tremendous power to make a difference in our lives and in our world. As human beings, we're not required to be perfect, but we are required to atone where we've fallen short and to do whatever we can to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past and to love the stranger and treat him as we would want to be treated. These things are not easy. Faith is hard. Hope is hard. Peace is hard. But right now, the book is open, not just for God, but for us. As a community bound together by shared values, side by side with friends and allies like the State of Israel, let's write the next chapter in a way that speaks to the best of our traditions and the highest of our ideals. Let's usher in a sweet new year full of health and happiness for our families, friends, and neighbors, whether they live down the street or halfway around the world. Happy New Year, everyone. And from my family to yours, Shana Tova.
Due to the Rosh Hashanah holiday, there was no trading on the Tel Aviv stock market today. But taking a look at the weather, and we can expect another slight drop in temperatures tomorrow under fair to partly cloudy skies. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow when I'll be back to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. Same time, same channel. I'm Erin Viner, and everyone here at IBA News joins me in wishing you and all of our viewers a great evening. Shana Tova, Chag Sameach, and Shalom from Jerusalem.